Today and Across the Fence, we're going to learn about one of the newest ways to get local food onto the plates of Vermonters, and it doesn't involve a store or market. But first, we're going to learn about Vermont-based research that's helping Vermonters and enriching the lives of those who are doing the research. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Each year, the University of Vermont spends time and money on research. The research work usually focuses on Vermont-specific problems, on issues like water pollution or alternative energies, and a host of other areas that are important to Vermonters. Our lead segment this afternoon focuses on research at UVM. But as we learn in this story from Rebecca Gollin, you might be surprised to learn who's doing the research and what they're discovering during the research process.
So they have little, their eggs that turn to embryos, and so they're in that little pouch. They usually have around
This is a Mysis diluviana. It's a small freshwater shrimp plucked from the depths of Lake Champlain. Researchers at the University of Vermont are hoping that studying the tiny crustacean will lead to big results.
We saw that mysis have declined almost tenfold in the past 37 years, and it really happened right after the invasion of zebra mussels into the lake.
Suzanne Ball is reproducing a study that was originally done in 1975 about the overall population and health of mysis in the lake. Others at UVM are also studying the creature with the goal of gaining insight into the lake's current health.
They're a really important prey species in the lake. They're omnivorous and they affect a lot of different trophic levels in the lake. They prey on a lot of different zooplankton species and are also an important food item for fish like alewife and smelt and lake trout.
Ball has been doing this research for the past year. At the end of her study, she'll produce a paper with her results, with the hope of publishing it in a scientific journal. Well, that's not an unusual destination for the kind of paper Ball is planning to write. What is unusual is that Ball is still an undergraduate.
Undergraduate research for us is really outside the classroom.
Ann Kroll-Lerner is the director of UVM's Office of Undergraduate Research, which supports a variety of research projects, such as Ball's, throughout the university.
We get students from across campus, so they can be in biology, psychology, the art department. I've got some English students doing some really interesting things this year. They're everywhere.
Support from the Office of Undergraduate Research might be anything from helping students find a project to work on, or a faculty advisor for their own research, to giving grants for travel, basic supplies, and other costs.
It's extracurricular. You know, it's something that they do above and beyond. It's not a basic expectation for all students, but we do encourage all students to kind of consider it as an option.
To highlight the student work, the Office of Undergraduate Research co-sponsors an annual research conference. Any UVM student working on a research or creative project can present their findings there, usually as a talk or informational poster, but the occasional music or dance performance is not unheard of. Over 300 students presented their work last year.
It's such a highlight of the year, and it's an important piece for what this office does because it is that kind of culmination of what the students are doing, and it's another way to sort of point the students who haven't gotten involved yet. They can wander through the conference and they can see, oh wow, I could do this. I'm a nursing student. I could go to Bangladesh and I could do research while I'm there.
I presented sort of an introduction to mysis, an introduction to this divergence in the behavior, and then an overall method section of what I plan to do, how I'm going to do my sampling, what time of day, what data I'm going to collect, and that kind of stuff. And then what we sort of expect as potential results to test our hypotheses.
Peter Euclid is getting his Master's of Science from the Rubenstein School of Environment and Natural Resources. He gave a talk at the conference about his research on mysis in Lake Champlain, in a session that included a range of topics from around campus. The student who presented before Euclid was pre-med.
He was doing something with brain aneurysms and stroke, and the person after me was doing a very social aspect sort of science where she was looking at women farmers groups here and in South America, and a very broad spectrum, but both presentations were good and pretty interesting.
They're engaging in true research. They ask a question, they gather data, they try to build this on their own. And it's always a wild ride because you never know if you're going to get to an expected outcome. And so in that way, they learn a completely new set of ways of looking at the world, ways of sort of thinking about their discipline.
To get students right as first-year students is great because we can train them up. They'll be here for another 3 years.
Jason Stockwell is a professor in the Rubenstein School.
The research they do is fundamental to doing science, and it's basically a hands-on experience that they're basically developing their skill sets, not only their physical skill sets in terms of how do you measure this or count that, but also their mental skill sets and how do you formulate a hypothesis, how do you ask a question, how do you ask a question in a way that you can actually test it.
Stockwell is the advisor for several undergraduate and graduate students who are doing research on mysis and Lake Champlain. He says that being involved in these projects gives students a taste of the life of a researcher, as well as the skills. That can be a huge head start for those who pursue a career in the sciences.
So they've been involved right from the get-go on their project all the way designing it. They've been responsible for collecting the data on the field. They've had great experience on our research vessel. They're in the lab doing the analyses and the processing. They're analyzing the data and they're writing everything from start to finish. So they will have a complete research experience by the time they leave here.
That research experience will be just the beginning for many of these students.
I plan on staying around universities. I really enjoy research, so I'll probably stay sort of in the ecology field, or that's my hope at least, either with lakes or streams, probably. So yeah, I'll be around boats and water and that kind of sampling, hopefully for my whole life.
From the field to the classroom, and everywhere in between. UVM's Office of Undergraduate Research helps students get results. In Burlington, I'm Rebecca Gullen with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Rebecca, and our thanks to the Office of Undergraduate Research at UVM. If you'd like to have someone come to your school or group to talk about undergraduate research, contact the office at UVM. Our next segment involves local food. But you don't have to go to the store or the market to get it. Keith Silva tells us more about the idea behind a buying club.
When the Windham Farm and Food Network started a buying club at the Oak Grove School in Brattleboro, Michelle Brainerd bought in, big time.
When they came up with this, I was like, I signed right up for it. I went right down there and signed up. You don't have to tell me anything, just let me sign. And they've been very good to me, excellent. Working with me through whatever problem I've had, gone through every little issue. They helped me with a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
Every other Tuesday, when Brainerd goes to get her daughter, she also picks up a box of food. For a minimum $10 buy-in, this club provides participants like Brainerd with access to local food that she would otherwise not have.
I have a hard time with transportation to be able to get farm to home food. I want to be able to contribute towards the farmers in Vermont, and my only way of doing that is through this program.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for coming over.
In and out, within 5 minutes.
For Milo Gardilsich, the convenience of the buying club is good. What's better is that he knows he's supporting his community.
I think it's great that they're taking the time out of their day to put this together and make it possible for, local families sometimes that don't get a chance to go to farmers markets and this and that, and not that we don't have the opportunities, because we do have some farmers markets in small towns like this, maybe we just don't make the time to do it. So it's something like this, really convenient, makes it, a great opportunity for people to access these fresh vegetables and stuff like that.
You have your bagels, you have your bread, apples.
Across the Fence first reported on the Windham Farm and Food Network in 2010. At the time, the goal was to get local food into hospital and school cafeterias. As the network built relationships with food service directors and school administrators, the next step has been to establish buying clubs like this one at the Oak Grove School in order to get more local food to the families who need it most. One of the farms in the network is the Harlow Farm in Westminster.
I've been a big proponent of getting vegetables to our local kids and to improve nutrition in the schools. The whole crux of the thing is to get more local food out there. So hopefully that'll build up into, better business for me. It's a long-term investment, I guess.
Harlow helped found the network, along with Hans Estrin of the University of Vermont Extension. The goal of the network is to make sure that it's sustainable for both farmers and customers.
Any local community network is going to be dependent on the geography, the personalities involved, the density of buyers, the interest. The market is there, but it has to be kind of in the right configuration to make this fly. So it can definitely fly, but what it means is we have a model here. It's got some great points. It's reproducible, but it's got to be malleable. It's an interesting puzzle.
This is sesame, everything.
The next piece of the puzzle fell into place when Estrin began working with Post Oil Solutions, a nonprofit organization in southeastern Vermont.
The current food system really relies on petroleum to grow and to move food around. And so as fuel prices rise, food prices rise. So we're really looking at building more of a local food system that can bear the brunt of such a economic issue moving forward.
Post Oil Solutions began conducting surveys with residents and learned that although the local food economy is robust, not everyone is able to take advantage of this bounty.
There are a lot of opportunities in farmers markets and co-ops where there is access to local food. A lot of it's simply not affordable to a lot of community residents. And at the same time, there's other issues of access that we found where transportation is a big issue. A farmer's market is a farmer's market. There tends to be a certain type of person that goes there. And what we heard in communicating with a lot of residents in the area, not everybody seems welcome or feels welcome at our farmers markets.
Burkfield and his colleagues believe conversations about food raise awareness.
Food is essential to building community in my mind and building those relationships, and it brings together so many people that would never communicate. And so I feel really excited about that possibility. We're not just talking about it anymore, but we're actually doing it and being able to provide a really relevant service to those families. Change takes time, but it's happening.
This is what I got. So
As the Buying Club helps knock down social barriers, it's also building a more hardy local economy.
Think of our local economy. That's what this all comes down to, and what ultimately got me very interested in this initially was looking at economic development. And if you're talking about economic development in Vermont, in Windham County, you can't not talk about farms and local food. This is not just about education. This is also about our local economy and supporting local food producers, growers, but also food producers. So I think that's really exciting, and that's something that everyone can connect to right now, and wanting to really support our local businesses and make sure the money stays here in this community instead of going out through other large food distributors or to other large companies.
This has been gone through twice.
During pickups, Hannah Jenkins is in charge of making sure what was ordered gets delivered. In addition, she educates participants about where their food comes from and the impact of their decision to buy local.
We have local wholesale farmers, we have sources of food. What we need to figure out is how do we connect the consumer to those farms in a way that works for both the consumer and for the farm. And so this may be the first step in building or strengthening that relationship. So helping people to start looking at their food buying choices and saying, I can buy broccoli that comes from California. I also have this number of farms that are within 20 miles of me that all sell broccoli as well. And thinking about how they're going to use the power of their money to help those farms to grow, to help other farms to grow in Windham County so that we are one day hopefully able to feed ourselves. So if you realize that you have a choice as to where you're going to buy your food, that is huge, and it's very empowering. And so I think it's both educational, and it's also helping people to realize the choices that they do have.
The Windham Farm and Food Network prides itself on choice, from the farmers to the organizers to the participants. Choice is the deciding factor in how this community supports, interacts, and cares for one another.
Perfect. Perfect for us.
In Brattleboro, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Keith. For more information on buying clubs, you can contact the Windham Farm and Food Network. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.
For a video copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-ATF-3430. Across the Fence is brought to you as a public service by University of Vermont Extension and WCAX-TV.